Hi guys, good afternoon. Welcome to another one of our webinar series on how to utilize your SharePoint more effectively. A little bit about myself. My name is Shariar, that's Sherry for short. Um, I am one of the co-founders of Code Creators. My role is more towards sales and marketing. Yes, sorry about that. My role is more targeted towards sales and marketing. I also do a lot of work in project management. A little bit about my background. I've been in Canada for the past 15 years or so, studying and then working professionally in a couple of organizations before getting on board with Code Creators. A little bit about us. Code Creators started a little over 10 years ago. Our first office was in Pakistan, then we moved to the US about 5 years ago, and Canada a couple of years ago. We're a full stack tech company dealing in a large range of technological solutions, including web app development, mobile development, data warehousing, business intelligence. We do a lot of work in Office 365, so specifically SharePoint consulting, SharePoint branding, SharePoint development. We also have, we provide SharePoint trainings, licenses, pretty much anything in technology you can think of. There's a strong chance we've done it or come across it. So the purpose of the webinar today is just to give you a little bit of insight as to what are some of the things that you can utilize SharePoint for, and how are ways in which we can help you. So I'm going to try to walk you through some real life examples of projects that we've done for other clients, whether it's branding, whether it's workflows, whether it's Power BI dashboards, just helping you learn a little bit about how you can get the most out of your SharePoint experience. So just a little bit about SharePoint expertise. We've worked with clients from small businesses with 5 to 10 employees, from corporations to about thousands of employees. And among the things that we've noticed in our experience with different organizations is SharePoint is a fundamental asset for all companies. Not only does it help in increasing collaboration, but its ease of creating workflows, its power tools, all kind of help create a very consistent environment where you can get work done fast and efficiently. Another reason why a lot of clients nowadays consider SharePoint is due to the existing nature of Office 365, where either a lot of organizations already have Office 365 or are planning on getting Office 365, and SharePoint tends to be a free component of Office 365. I myself have worked with about 50 clients over the past couple of years, just helping them get on to SharePoint with branding solutions and workflow solutions. So for any SharePoint project that we start as consultants or experts, we always start off with what we like to call a phase one. And phase one generally starts off with getting some basic SharePoint branding done and just helping your SharePoint site becoming a bit more interactive, a bit more visually pleasing, and a little easier to use. Once those goals are kind of achieved and you have a consistent sense of look, feel, and image, you can move on to other points. For branding, we always make sure to create modern templates that really match the brand values of the clients that we work with. And part of our services, before we start off any project, we ensure to create some SharePoint branding guidelines and samples for our clients. A couple examples like I would kind of like to show. So this is a charitable organization in the US, and this is what their SharePoint site kind of looks like. So this is an example of a fairly simple SharePoint site. So you have a document section, a company policy, a calendar, you have a beautiful blue slider. It's fully dynamic, so it's controlled by lists on the back end. So once we set it up for you, it's very easy for you to manage. You have a little latest news, a public bulletin board, an information center, a latest event, a calendar, quick links. Really your hub for all employee activities. So if anyone comes on to your landing page, they have any and all information that they need. For their documents page, we broke it up by specific departments. So in their case, I had operation, executive, HR, accounting, and general. And inside each department, we had broken up their permissions based on read, write, and owner permissions. So for example, someone that had access to HR doesn't necessarily get access to the executive department. It's completely up to you and how you want to segment those document libraries. When you go inside documents, then you can see specific document libraries therein. And we had created a separate section for company policies. So one of the important things to really look at in terms of design is ensuring it's consistent with your current website. And that's kind of why we used the color wheel that fits them better, making sure their logo is incorporated. So really just creating a space for your brand to really extend itself. So that's one way to kind of take SharePoint branding. Another example I can show you is slightly different in terms of how it's set up. So again, in terms of a landing page, you have your departments and services on the right. You have some quick access options, document libraries, announcements, new employees. All of these are dynamic lists on the back end. So again, once they're set up, you can work on them on your own on the back end. Again, their departments are set up based on the departments that you see. They have little document libraries inside each department, how you add a document. What you want to remember when making a SharePoint site is to ensure that you cover the basics that you have set off for phase one. Moving on, an interesting point that a lot of clients kind of ask us about these days is SharePoint migration. So when you think about SharePoint itself, a lot of people have been using SharePoint 2010, 2013, 2016 on-prem. One of the important services that we provide is helping you upgrade your SharePoint versions to come to something a little bit newer, more up-to-date, and more functionality. SharePoint 2010, for example, has been phased out by Microsoft itself, so support tends to be fairly limited, whereas SharePoint Online is a lot more prevalent these days. Another reason we generally suggest or help in migration is when you work on SharePoint on-premises, your hosting and your server costs tend to be pretty high. So in an effort to save your cost without compromising really your security, a lot of clients prefer SharePoint migration. And what's interesting when you consider SharePoint migration is it might seem like a really daunting task if you have a really big SharePoint site set up. But based on our strategies and our experience, we make that painstaking process really extremely simple. So we've worked on some really large multi-layered architectured sites for migration recently, including DR sites that we've moved along with it as well. A really interesting point about SharePoint, which not a lot of clients or people use, are what we call SharePoint workflows. So think of a workflow as any kind of automated task that makes a manual task for you easier. So say you have manual processes right now in your billing or in your HR departments or your production departments that are taking a lot of time. You can use SharePoint workflows to completely automate those processes. Now you have third-party tools available in SharePoint as well, like K2, Nintex. Our suggestion is always kind of to stay with SharePoint native. K2 and Nintex are great solutions, but when it comes to licensing costs, they end up becoming fairly expensive. So just to give you some examples of what SharePoint workflows can look like. So you can have leave request flows, travel request flows, document approval flows, expense approval flows, performance management, change management. I can walk you through an example as well. So this is a management of change workflow. So the management of change workflow, you generally start off with step one, where you take initial details, name of a product, category. You move on to step two, where you put in the change details. You would select different departments that would be there for review, and you would select the final department as your approver. And then the way the flow works is once you initiate it, it's going to be sent out to each one of your reviewers. After they've all reviewed and approved it, it's going to go to your final approver for approval. And once it's done, it's going to file away neatly in your project, in your change dashboard. So you can see exactly which changes were approved, reviewed, rejected, what stages are which changes, and these are the kind of notifications that you would get in SharePoint and in email as well. So just to give you an idea of how one kind of workflow works. Other slightly more complex workflows that I can kind of just walk you through to give you an idea of complexity. This, for example, is a printing business. They have taken their entire production process onto SharePoint. So their process starts with an initiator. The initiator fills in an order and it's connected to Salesforce. So they get customer information directly from Salesforce. They print out either an order form or a sign-up form. After that, the order is sent to the order desk where they put in hours for estimation. After that, it goes to the designer that does the initial design, puts in their hours, sends it to the client for approval. If the client approves it, it moves forward. Otherwise, it goes back for a design change. After that, it goes to the admin department where they can decide whether to outsource it or keep it in-house. If they outsource it, it goes to a subcontractor. If they keep it in-house, it goes straight to their digital production, after which it goes to their print bindery, then their billing desk, at which point it integrates with QuickBooks as well. So through SharePoint Workflows, you can do integrations with things like QuickBooks. So if you'd like to create invoice payment workflows, for example, you could do those. You could create invoice receivable workflows as well. You can also make really simple flows like IT workflows. So if you'd like to report an issue that you're facing with your current system, you can go onto SharePoint, engage with a button. It'll open up a little predefined form. Once you fill it out, your IT team will get a notification with a number generated saying, ticket number 101 has been created. And then it becomes easy for your IT team to follow those tickets as well. So really think of SharePoint as an extension to your workforce, helping you make the difficult time-taking tasks a lot easier. And one of the benefits of working with code creators is because we've been doing this for so long and we've worked on so many different kinds of flows, no matter how complex your project or your processes are, we can definitely help you break them into very easy, simple to digest flows. Another interesting part about SharePoint is SharePoint Apps. Now, when you talk about SharePoint Apps, they're a little bit different from a regular SharePoint site in the sense that SharePoint Apps have more functionalities back towards them. A couple SharePoint apps that we've made in the recent past have been on SharePoint Online, and they've been for inventory management. So we worked with a client recently that had a meat production business where they would manage all of their orders on SharePoint through a custom app. Other projects that we've worked on have been specific to project management portals. So creating entire SharePoint sites that are dedicated to project management, replacing tools like Jira, whereas integrating with tools like Microsoft Project. So you could build in any kind of application in SharePoint that would be easily shareable with your internal staff and external users as well. Another really interesting tool about SharePoint, which if you use can really help you become better at SharePoint, is SharePoint Power Apps. Microsoft has been really encouraging users to go towards its power tools these days. So SharePoint Power Apps help you create a mobile app based out of SharePoint and connect it to a specific workflow. To give you a couple examples of Power Apps that we've made in the past, we worked with a client recently that had a mining organization, and they needed to do audits of specific mines. And one of the issues that they faced was when they went out to sites to do audits of minery machinery, there was no way for them to fill out audit forms effectively. So what we did was we set up SharePoint for them, and we created a Power App. And within that Power App, we embedded a form that allowed them to effectively survey a specific piece of machinery, take images, send all of that information directly through SharePoint, where we created a specific flow in which sense that that detail would fall under a specific service manager. That service manager can review the ticket. Once they reviewed it, they can either approve or reject. If they approved it, it would fall into their Dynamics 365 as a purchase order, and then complete the cycle by getting billed to the client as well. So really, again, Power Apps are as useful as you would like to make them. So if any of you guys ever have some queries or are thinking of utilizing Power Apps for your business, definitely send me a message after this call and I would be happy to walk you and guide you through it. So we spoke about SharePoint Workflows a little bit earlier. SharePoint Flow is a specific tool that helps you create workflows a lot easier. SharePoint Flow is another one of your SharePoint powered tools that really helps you create processes a lot faster and a lot easier. So through a SharePoint Flow, you can create approval hierarchy workflows a lot quicker. One of my favorite tools in SharePoint is Power BI. So Power BI isn't technically a part of SharePoint, but it is a Microsoft product. So it fits in very neatly under Office 365. Now think of Power BI as a strong reporting interface that lives on top of your Excel or other data sources that helps you understand and visualize data in a lot stronger way. So any KPIs that you have, which we call key performance indicators that you want to see, you can do it a lot more effectively with Power BI. To give you a couple examples of what a Power BI dashboard can look like, so this is an executive insights dashboard. So this is generally for your top level C management, and it's going to walk you through some important KPIs like what's your total profit, total margin, average order quantity, total revenue. You can see your revenue by different geographies, and if you click onto any piece, it filters in it a little deeper. You can filter by total revenue, total quantity, total profit. You can look at different product categories. Again, what's really useful about Power BI is once the dashboard is set up and the ETL process is configured, then all you need to do is drop another Excel file in that specific folder in Power BI, and it will automatically sync and update your data for you. So we've helped a lot of clients create these kind of unique dashboards. You can see your top 5 products. You can also see your bottom 5 products. So when it comes to reporting tools or dashboarding tools, Power BI tends to be an extremely simple yet useful one. Just another example of a dashboard. So you can see sales by specific products, by specific regions, by state. You can see different segments: consumer segment, corporate, home office, years. Where are you unprofitable? So if there are ever any specific metrics that your organization is more concerned about, you would just need to walk them through with us and we could create a Power BI dashboard based on your specific needs. Another cool thing about Power BI is if you're a little bit more technical, Power BI doesn't necessarily depend upon creating cubes. You can configure your Excels directly to Power BI, and the cubing process Power BI handles on its end. So you don't have to be extremely technical to get the best out of Power BI. You just need to know your requirements well and connect with the right people. Another point pretty popular in SharePoint utilization is business process management. So we end up working with a lot of large and small organizations, and the points that they talk to us about are the pains that they feel in terms of process management and how we can improve that for them. So through kind of SharePoint flows, Power Apps, you can actually create or automate processes that can help you everyday life. For example, performance management or appraisal management. All of these processes can be automated completely from SharePoint. Employee productivity, employee timing, all of these can also be managed and automated through SharePoint as well. Lastly, one of the things that's really important to make sure you're getting the most out of your SharePoint site is to make sure your infrastructure and health is optimized. So when we generally start off work with any new client, we offer them some free services that include branding mocks, branding guidelines. We also help them structure and audit their current SharePoint. So we go through it to make sure there are no security gaps. We've had cases where clients have unprotected sites where they have accesses to confidential information, but it's not being used properly. We've also helped clients in the past set up Azure Information Online Protection, which allows them to really secure their sites and their files. So for any really successful utilization of SharePoint, you need to ensure that your infrastructure and health is optimized. So to conclude, SharePoint is an amazing tool that if used accurately, it can help you with collaboration, communication, document sharing, document support, workflows, honestly, you name it, and SharePoint can assist you with that. If any of you guys have any questions or would like some of our help, please get in touch with us after this webinar. Our contact information is help@codecreators.ca. And thank you all for attending. Have a good day.